Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zach Cherry, and with me, as always, is...
Oh, come on. You have made millions off the story of her murder. You're obsessed with her, and you're obsessed with her daughter!
Right,
she says
easy
it weird.
Geraldo.
Eddie of Edward is Truth. Hi.
And today, it is Scream 3.
Obviously.
Released February 4th, 2000. Which, it's been a while.
This movie's old enough to drink and then some now.
Yeah, it's committing crimes and whatnot and serving time.
It's draft dodging and buying cigarettes. I don't know.
All right. Before we get into the meat of it, do you want to do your synopsis?
Yeah.
Let's get that out of the way.
All right. We're gonna do this a little differently.
We love this movie.
We do, but I didn't
synopsis.
have the time to put together something special. So there are 5 plot synopses that are run-on sentences on IMDb. I'm gonna read one. If you like it, we'll move on. But
Okay.
if not, we got another one we can try on. They're real short.
All right.
Okay. While Sidney and her friends visit the Hollywood set of Stab 3, the third film based on the Woodsboro murders, another Ghostface killer rises to terrorize them. Scream 3.
Perfect.
Great.
I mean, it doesn't make sense, but perfect. Yeah, we'll go with it.
It's a wrap. If you don't know what Scream 3 is about and you're watching this, stop watching
Well,
this.
that's
Go
the
watch
thing.
Scream
Okay, because I
3.
messaged you beforehand because
Yeah.
you were running late, and you're like, I have to make a synopsis. And I'm just like, who cares? Like, everyone who listens to the podcast or watches this channel has seen Scream 3. If you haven't, I don't know what's going on with you.
What are you doing
But-
here?
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, Scream is my thing, apparently.
Yeah,
And
apparently.
most people are here because of Scream. So you've probably seen Scream and Scream 2, 3, 4, and 5. So
Yeah.
this is interesting because you and I have been we've been podcasting for a while now. We've been podcasting since, was it summer of 2020?
Yep.
Yeah. So the Cherry Picker, as you're listening to now, like, we started that in February of this year, 2022. But we've been doing this for a while. We already went through all the Scream movies a while ago.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we started with. And we did 1, 2, 3, 4, because 5 wasn't out at that point. And that was a while ago, because that was 2 years now. And I like, my opinion of Scream 3 has changed so much in that time. Like, I've always, like, I love every single movie in this franchise. But there was a time where, like, Scream 3 was my least favorite. And I feel like for a lot of people, it is kind of, like, they dismiss it. They're just like, this is a terrible movie. And I disagree. I mean, it's not up to snuff with, in my opinion, the first two. But it's not like... Okay, here, for example, I did a video on my main channel a while ago. It was my ranking of all the 90s, and in quotation fingers, 90s teen horror. Because technically this is a 90s teen horror. It was directed in the 90s. It came out February 4th, 2000.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't rush. They didn't start filming January 1st and get it done in a month. So this is a 90s
Right.
movie, and I forget, like, exactly where I ranked this, but I put this above the I Know What You Did Last Summers, and people lost their shit. They're like, Scream 3 better than I Know What You Did Last Summer? And I'm just like, yeah. I mean, this movie is not boring. But the thing is, like, for all of its faults, this is still a Wes Craven directed movie. And you like say what you want about it, he still, against all odds, pulled this one out of the bag and made it the best possible version of what Scream 3 could have been, given all of the fucking, like, shit that was, you know, he had to deal with the Weinsteins and Aaron Kruger's script. I don't really blame Aaron Kruger, because Aaron Kruger was also under the control of the Weinsteins at the time, so he was kind of roped into that contract. So, you know, for everything, like, Wes Craven was really pulling, like, triple duty here, doing like everyone's job to make this make this movie what it was. So I, you know, in spite of all that, like, this was the best effort that they could have done with everything that they were working with.
This is so funny, because I was thinking about the frequency with which I've seen this movie. Now, I've seen it more than a handful of times in the last 22 years. And I feel like I know it well. I don't know if it's a back of my hand kind of scenario, but it's certainly in my memory, and there's very little that I watch that surprises me. Watching it with subtitles was interesting, because there were lines that I was catching where I was just kind of like, oh, never noticed that before. But I realized in the last approximately 2 years, like just over 2 years, because of podcasting, I've watched it 5 times, this most current time included. And I had kind of the opposite reaction, I think, that you did. I am so tired of watching this movie. Just because I watched it once for the pod I do with my oldest friend, John Carlos. That's how you came to kind of, like, you know of me and everything like that. A little backstory, folks. And then it was like, hey, he could do a podcast. He likes talking about Scream. And I have some opinions about, like, what he said and everything. What if we talk about it on a pod? We did a pod and blah, 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 blah. And so I watched it once for the pod with him. Then I watched it for the pod with you. Then the old pod was basically like a commentary track, so we watched it again as we were recording. So that was the third time. Then I watched it again for our Who Killed Who's, even though this one, it was purely speculatory, like, not based in
because it's just one killer.
Like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I do get more out of it if I tell myself that.
We'll get to that. We'll devote a section to the second possible killer.
Anyway, so I had to watch it again for the Scream Who Killed Who pod that we did, and then I watched it for this, and I'm just.
You probably watched it for Scream 5? Like, did you not watch them all before you went to see that?
No. Really? I didn't need to.
I almost didn't watch it. Like, because I watched it last night, and then obviously, like, me being me, like, fell asleep in spite of my best efforts. So I finished watching the rest this afternoon. But I almost didn't. I was just like, do I need to watch this again? Like, I've seen it so many times. But I like to. I like to have a refresher.
Sure.
No, that's fine. But it's nice because, you can put on something familiar and it helps you fall asleep. It's not a reflection of the movie.
Yeah, but that's what happened this most recent screening. I did fall asleep.
You fell asleep, yeah. But it was and
I've seen it before, so yeah.
Yeah, it was a good falling asleep for me because I felt like, I was like cuddling up with a good friend of mine and just being like, this is nice. I'm just gonna fall asleep to this and
to Patrick Warburton.
So, yeah. But so okay, I because I don't know if we've discussed this before, but what is your franchise ranking?
There's
we 5 movies. This shouldn't be hard.
I know. It's always... And also, I still am kind of like... I think I've seen 5... 3 times now? I don't even know.
Yeah.
I've seen it a couple times. Handful of times. And I think my most recent ranking that I did, because, it's so weird. Number 1's at the top, obviously. Not obvious. Some people don't have it at the top.
It
baffles me, but whatever. To each their own. Right below that, I think I had Scream 2022.
Just call it 5.
I don't even remember it.
5 Cream.
That thing. Yeah, 5 Cream. 5 Cream. I think I had that just below it because I had such a fun ride with it, even though despite everybody else's, misgivings and criticisms.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then just below that, I think I swapped... I always swap Scriphorum and Scream 2, and I think the most recent viewing I did for Scream 2 upped it higher than Scriphorum, but
Yeah.
they'll always
Until you
be
watch
doing a dance.
Screamforum, and then it'll jump back. It'll leapfrog.
Yeah,
over.
right, right. Because
Yeah.
it leaves me. I do go home happy with Scriphorum, happier than I do going home from Scream 2. But I enjoy the ride and I enjoy the setup of Scream 2 and everything. Anyway, and then at the bottom is Scream 3, and it will remain there. I can tell you with devout. Is it devout confidence? I don't know what it is, but whatever the confidence is, it's stable. It is solid. It is unshakable.
Well, we're gonna work through that in this episode to understand
it'll be my
why,
list of grievances and your list of explanations.
I mean, I have grievances. I have plenty of grievances, but I would say like my ranking hasn't changed from the video I did. So it's from best to worst, 1 to 5, 3, 4. 4 being the bottom. And the thing is, like, there are things. Every single one of these movies has something spectacular about it. And there are things in Scream 3 that I like a lot more than Scream 5, because there are certain things in Scream 5 that I'm just, like, question and just being like, that really pisses me off. But that's the thing. Like, the 3 and 5 for me, they could be interchangeable. Currently, I think I would put 5 above, just because I think that it does a better job in just telling a broader story. We'll talk about this in my issues with Scream 3. But the things that I really love about Scream 3 that I appreciate more than Scream 5 are just like the classicness of, and I know you hate that word, describing movies as classic, but I guess just like it feels, there's a certain vibe from the first 3, like the trilogy, and that's kind of lost on 4 and 5, and
right.
I really get that. Like, Scream 3 is a really fun movie. Like, I have a good time with it. Scream 3 to me is like the seed of Chucky, or the Friday the 13th, the New Beginning, or the Halloween 5. It's like it's the entry that's like you just have to go into it and have fun. Like, you just have to have your sense of humor turned on for it.
I can see that. I do agree with you. I think the visual aesthetic overall of the movie, it is uniform between the original trilogy, the original Wes influenced trilogy.
Well, because you've got all this, like, Peter Deming as the DP. You've got Patrick Lussier who is editing that. Like, once they got to Scream 4 11 years later, most of the crew changed. It was mostly new people doing it. So there is like a cohesiveness, not to the story, obviously, because, Aaron Kruger and then the Weinstein influence, but just in terms of like aesthetically, it does feel like a complete trilogy with 1, 2, and 3.
Characters and environments occupy the screen in a similar way in all 3 movies. And I can appreciate that. But I think that's what really stood out to me this most recent screening. I was sitting there and I was actually, I found myself trying to postpone the inevitable. I was really watching everything I could until but I'm like, I know it's just under 2 hours, so I should probably start watching it around 10, so I know I can be done before midnight, so I can go to bed and get ready for work and everything like that last night. And oh my God, I was dragging my feet, and I was like, why? And then I put it on, and I okay. Talking about like sight and sound and the use of it, I really do appreciate from the get-go the kind of because Marco Beltrami did this score, right?
Yeah, he's done 1 to 4.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Just the way it opens with the and everything on the big Hollywood sign and everything makes it feel very Scream. And I love that that the introduction of the new environment, because we're not in Woodsboro in this movie, is so in your face. So look at it, it's Hollywood. And so I'm like, okay, cool, I'm down for this. And then we go to Cotton, and again, from a purely superficial standpoint, I can appreciate the fact that like we're back to somebody being on the phone in the opening sequence of a Scream movie, and instead of it being a girl alone in a big house, it's a guy in a car, and it's Cotton, somebody who we already know. But I just thought, like, the more that it was playing, the first, let's say, 20 times I watched this movie, it never really stood out to me or annoyed me so much that Cotton hangs up on, is it his agent? I can't even remember.
Andrea.
But Andrea, he hangs up on someone to talk to some rando on the phone just because she has like a nice voice or something.
Well, she says that he has a sexy voice, and he's like,
yeah. But I mean, but the reason he's like hanging up on something.
The only thing that was missing was him, like, you know, because he was like kind of reclining. The only thing that was missing was like him putting his hand down his pants. Like, yeah, we're like gridlocked here, like. You know, I got some like random person on the phone who sounds sexy. Right. The thing that I was thinking when I watched that is just like, knowing that this is Roman who's using the magical voice box, and we'll get to the magical voice box, but just the like him, I could just see Scott Foley like as Roman, like with this thing and just being like, oh yeah, 110%. Like, I'm a huge fan of your show.
with like a vocal fry, an affected kind of vocal fry.
Yeah,
you know, I love that. But I'm always reminded of my first viewing when I didn't know, because he asks that question before we know what the name of his show is. He says, like, so, you 100% Cotton fan? And I remember thinking he was just, like, really bad at flirting. Yeah. And it just sounded like, ew, gross! But then I saw he drives by his own billboard and says 100% Cotton. I'm like, oh, that's what that meant. Yeah. Okay, he's still gross, but, like, not in a way where it's like, I'm going to use my name to... I don't know, he's just gross.
The opening scene was, like, torture for them to produce. Because there were so many different versions of that. At one point, it wasn't even Cotton. I don't even think Cotton Weary was in the movie. It was an actor their name was Ben Damon. So it's like a play on like Matt.
Ben Affleck
and it like the whole thing, like it took place like he was in traffic, but then it ended up at the Hollywood sign, where his girlfriend was then like strung up and gutted like Casey in the original, but they're just like, this isn't working. I don't like, you know, they never filmed it obviously, but just in the story, and then it turned out to be Cotton, and there was a lot more, and this is actually now, as of very recently, made its way onto YouTube, of just like the excised scenes, because that's the problem with the Scream movies, or just like the distributors. They do not include any deleted, like there are deleted scenes, but like it's bare bones. There's so much content that they wrote and filmed for these movies that just it's missing. They just don't have it. And there was this whole chunk that was actually added with Scream 3 with Cotton, and it shows like the actual beginning of it is his girlfriend Christine. She's at home and she's watching TV and she's watching his show, because you know when he comes home and the TV's on with his show, so she's already watching it and she's on the phone with him and just being like, oh yeah, I'm watching it now or whatever, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna have a shower, see you soon. So there's like extra footage of her, and so that's why that would have already established that he was the 100% Cotton. As you say, it wouldn't have been as jarring as hearing him be like, "Oh, so you're 100%, 110%." But then there was more to it. There was more to the call, and the killer like had played a game with him and was just like, you know, like, guess my favorite scary movie or something like that. And he's like, it's a Stephen King movie, and he's just like, Carrie, like just listing off all these things, and is like, it's about the car, and he's like, oh, Christine, and that was like the clue that it's like, oh, his girlfriend Christine, so that's why her name is Christine, because it was a reference to the John Carpenter movie about the killer car. So there was a lot more to that, and I feel like a lot of my problems like with the movie are just based on logic. Always, like, it always comes down to logic, but it's just like because the problem here is that as you say, it's very written, just not like the dialogue, but just in terms of the story, because like why is Roman like giving Cotton this ultimatum, like, tell me where Sidney Prescott is and I'll let you live? Because first of all, Cotton would have no fucking idea where Sidney Prescott.
No.
Like they are not friends. Like he saved her life, but if you look at her caller, like her phone at home, the only speed dial contacts are Dewey and Dad. Like she doesn't have any communication with Gail. She's shut off from everyone. So Cotton, being this random guy who had an indiscriminate affair with her mother years ago and was accused by her, they would never be friends. He would never have this information. So it's just like the whole point of Roman just being like, tell me where Sidney Prescott is, and it's just like, just kill him. Like your whole plan is to kill him. So why are you going about it this stupid way? Like that's the writing. That's where like the Aaron Kruger, like they were just basically writing this under the wire and being like, okay, just do this. Like it'll make sense. People will be happy enough with the script. And I feel like that's basically like the rest of the movie is just like all the issues with how things just kind of come together that way.
I wonder if this discussion is going to make me like the movie more, just because I'm the king of headcanon. And now I'm just kind of thinking like, but we know that Roman like has had an outside view of Sidney's life up until now, and he has idealized it greatly. He has no idea who she is or what her life is like, but he's got his own little, opaque bottom of Coke bottle that he sees the world through, and he's convinced that he can see it oh so clearly. And I feel like maybe if he saw Sidney on Diane Sawyer with Cotton, he thinks they must be best friends or something, and that's why he went after him, because of surely they're on the news together, they must have picnics and go on hikes all the time, or I don't know, but I don't know. Now
well, I mean, Roman, based on what we know about him later on, like he's a very like he just seems like one of those like impulsive totally. Like jump to conclusions, sort of like he's very erratic. His kind of demeanor, like I feel that like out of all the killers, he's the most childlike. Like he just has a very petulant energy to him. It's just like basically like they could have just grown up together. They could have been siblings, and this could have just been like carried over, just like this rivalry that they had. So I definitely feel like that, that could be something that Roman would just do, like, oh, she's getting all this like attention for this, and like here I am, I got abandoned when I was a kid, like we'll talk about Roman, but
yes, we will.
Because this is the thing, I feel like the problem with this movie for me is that like I accept this movie for what it is, but there's so many different versions of Scream 3 out there that don't exist but could have existed that would have been so good. That would have been like the perfect cap to the trilogy, in my opinion, because this movie feels very disjointed from the first two. Because even like watching the opening scene, like as I was watching it this time, I was just feeling like I don't think about the ramifications of like Cotton and his girlfriend. Like I don't see how that kind of like carries into the rest of the movie, and it's almost like tonally it's such a different movie from like the Cotton Weary beginning to all of the stuff with Gail and Dewey and Jennifer and the Stab cast, and then everything to do with Sidney. I feel like this is almost 3 movies in one, and I was just watching the opening and being like, I'm gonna forget all about this, because with Scream 1, the Drew Barrymore scene, even though it's not really referenced after the first act, it's still like it sits with you, it resonates with you for the entire thing. That's like that's the biggest part of the movie, and it's the thing you always think about. With Scream 2, the opening scene at the movie theater, even that is like thematically works into the whole idea of like violence in cinema, and Mickey's whole thing at the end, like I'm gonna blame the movies and whatnot. Whereas Scream 3, it just felt so shoehorned. Like let's just bring back an old character and kill them off in the beginning. And that's like, I feel like it's such a, we've talked about this before, maybe not in the Cherry Picker podcast, but it's almost like, killing off, especially in the Halloween franchise, of just like their pattern of like, let's just kill off a person from the last movie, because that just seems to be, work for us for all that. And not to say that I don't think that like killing Cotton is a bad idea, but it's just like, I would much rather in a Scream movie have the opening kill, because I mean, like the whole concept of the opening kill has kind of blown up into this big thing where just like, oh yeah, you have to have like a big cameo, like a big name cameo, do the scene, and it's, you know, it's this big elaborate thing, but they haven't really done that. They, like, outside of the original, I mean, I guess you could say like Jada Pinkett in 2, and then I guess to a certain extent like all of the faces that we see in 4 as well, but it's just like it just feels kind of cheap to bring a character who you've already put so much work into in terms of writing with Cotton Weary, and then just like dispose of him in the most unremarkable way ever. Like the opening to Scream 3 is not my least favorite opening, but it's a weak opening for sure. Like it's really done. Like it's well done. It's well acted. It's well directed, edited, everything. It's just so unremarkable. Like, do you know what I mean?
I do, and I actually think most of the movie, most emphasis, is well acted. The actors actually carry me through a great deal of it. Some more than others, but we'll talk about the stunt casting too, because my God. But as far with regard to the scene and how it's handled, like even just you explaining to me the game, just creates a whole other layer of like tension to me. Like I could feel myself starting to tense up just at the prospect of that, of, you know, something more than just kind of like what I mentioned, the gimmick of like, now it's a man on the phone with a woman that he thinks, you know, that she's saying, I think yeah, it's actually that, and everything. And to see how different it is, it's like, no, but you know what would have been cool if it had been the same, if we could have spent a little more time building towards something as opposed to, and also hearing you talk about all of this, it's making me think that like, the scene would have been more impactful if the whole point of it was, much in the same way in the first movie, the whole point of it was to kill Casey Becker.
Yeah.
And the second movie to kill Maureen and I can't remember Omar Epps' character's name right
Phil.
now. But yes, him.
Yeah.
And to kill them because the name thing, because we're gonna, you know, put in this layer in there. It was, you know, it was planned out. If the whole point was to not just kill off a member of the Stab 3 cast, because that might not register on Sidney's radar, that might not get through to her. But if she hears somebody who she knows, and especially somebody who she once accused of murdering her mother, and she has now since contributed to exonerating him and done the Diane Sawyer interview, which I believe they had done by now. And now she's
I wish that was a special feature that they filmed.
Oh my God, that would have been amazing. Just to see her very uncomfortably sitting there just kind of waiting for it to be over.
You know what, I think that Sidney would be, I think that like that's because that's where she would like bring her strength, and like she would just be, you know what, I got to do this and I'm going to sit through it, and I'm going to, you know, she would not be a nervous interview giver. Not
nervous, but certainly like I have a feeling
Guarded.
she'd hear questions and just kind of give that wonderful Sidney look back, you know, like that depth that Neve Campbell has behind her eyes, then just kind of like answer from a real place of like, what an odd question. But and I could just see Cotton just giggling through the whole thing. But
well, he would do the thing where he's like always like, he'd be like, oh yeah, there's a camera there and a camera there.
Yeah, right.
A camera there. I was gonna make sure. How's my light?
And let me, you know, throw in a few mentions of my talk show, 100%.
I also got a book,
but
out right now.
Yeah, my book, exactly.
And his
Diane,
what was it? His like 1-800, his 800 number or whatever. He's like that on this. Like, what the fuck? What is that? What the hell? I mean, I know we're jumping into Scream 2 here, but I was just like, is he like taking calls? Like, you know, like...
If the whole thing had been set up. For the whole point is just to kill him and his girlfriend, just to really like, you know, like lay it in and everything. That could have been really dreadful. Like, and imagining a team, I'm going to suggest, of ghost faces just kind of like milling about that big house, like, and getting maybe a little bit more
the condo
clues, because a little bit more of like, but a little bit more of like them in the environment, because by now we know they're going to be in the environment. So show it to us, but don't show it to us like while they're on the phone doing something that's implausible as talking in full voice while they're outside the shower door, where she would, number one, see them, and number two, hear them. It's just
Yeah, and there was another version that's is on the original DVD release where
the
we
bonus
see
disc.
well that's the first one, or
that's
the
the
bonus.
fourth bonus disc
Oh, okay.
of the DVDs.
Which I actually liked. I thought it was effective, where he's on the phone with Christine, or who he thinks is Christine, and he's going around the apartment searching the rooms and everything, and she's like, I'm at the coffee shop, you told me to meet you there, and she's like, okay, I'm coming back, and he's like, don't come back. She's like, I'm on my way, it's too late. And then you hear her, she's like, I'm coming up the stairwell, go get the bat out of the closet at the front. And that's when he opens the closet and her body falls out, and then you realize he kind of has that realization, like, oh shit, and the killer comes up behind him. And I just think that it wasn't filmed great, and that's why they probably changed it, because there is a whole thing where like they use different locations, and you can kind of see both locations in the finished product, because like his death actually occurred at the front entrance, and you can see like, because he has a cotton banner for his show,
of course he does,
like on top of, like, just in his living room space there, which is not in the office. And then of course there was the skylight alternate opening where he goes out there, which I thought was good too. It's like added a little bit more gore. He got stabbed in the ankle, but I mean that could have just been the censorship just being like, get it out of there, it's bad for business, you know.
Maybe. God, so stupid. But I mean, that's the thing, is like the disc that I just showed, the visual component doesn't work for people listening. I held up the fourth disc from the original Scream trilogy box set from 2001 something. But the thing is, I thought about that while I was watching the scene, because I also thought, like, there's an interactive game where you can re-edit the opening scene of Scream 3, and I remember my sister and I had hours of fun doing these fucked up edits, because there were also like alternate takes that they did not put in the movie, like one where Christine just kind of swings the fire iron at
her homage
nothing.
to Wendy, you know?
Yeah, she just kind of goes
from The Shining.
Why do you want to kill me?
I'm very confused.
Yes, and the ghost face is late getting in behind her, because you can tell she's supposed to be stabbed as soon as she's finished saying the line. And it's maybe it was a rehearsal, I don't know, but he like rushes in, she goes because she's trying to buy time, and she almost, like, you can tell she's almost going to turn around and be like, are you coming? But then he kind of mimes stabbing her.
Yeah, because there's like a quick
anything.
cut there that like her actually.
And in the movie, she screams. She does a full you know, like that. But
she
in
does
the
it really well,
cut,
and
like,
the musical cue in that moment too, like talking about Marco Beltrami, like that's like I remember that. Like if I listen to the soundtrack, and I hear that, I'm like, oh, this is the part of the movie that's from. Like it's such a specific cue.
But I just couldn't help feeling like the reason they put in the edits feature for this movie instead of the first or the second one is that it would feel sacrilegious to re-edit, particularly the first movie opening. And the second one, I wouldn't want to re-edit either. Like, I don't want to have fun with that. This one I can, because I don't care.
I think that the biggest problem, aside from what I was saying, like with the movie, but especially that kind of bleeds into the opening, is that like the idea, like every Scream movie has a theme. The first one is obviously horror movies, full stop. Scream 2 is sequels. Scream 3 is trilogies, horror trilogies, and then 4 is remakes, 5 is requels or nostalgia. But that's the thing, like there are no, like, horror movies or trilogies don't exist. Like Randy even says, like, it's a rarity in the horror field. But it really, I mean, at that point, I mean, I guess you could say maybe like Child's Play, Alien, but like those movies already had...
like they exist
like
until
Alien
you
Resurrection,
make a fourth
Bride
sequel,
of Chucky. Yeah.
Or a third sequel, rather, a fourth movie.
Yeah. But that's why they always, like, more so, like, they were mentioning movies like The Godfather and Star Wars and whatnot, because it's just like it's such a tenuous theme to just be like, oh, it's the third one, so it's going to be all about trilogies, and it doesn't work. Like, it's just, that's why so much of the movie is just like, we're just going to pull things out of thin air and just hope that we can make something of it. And I feel that, like, the opening, if they had more of a grasp on how they were going to like formulate this idea of trilogies, they could have done something really spectacular with opening scenes. And I think that's where like Kevin Williamson was involved. He would have been like, no, this is not how you pay homage to a trilogy. We're gonna like scrap this entire opening. Like, this is stupid. Like, I could just see Kevin coming in there and being like, absolutely not. And he would go into his like backlog, like he would go to his movie shelf and he would just be like, hey, what are third movies and what have they done here? And like, okay, this is what we're going to pay homage to, and this is how I'm gonna work it into the themes of it being a trilogy. I mean, we all know, like, if you don't, that the Kevin's original idea, which I don't even want to say was his original idea, because I feel that when he wrote Scream, they had the option to write the sequel, so he already had that. But I don't think that they had any further than that. And when the time came that the studio was like, okay, we're going to make the third one, he was busy because it's like his stardom took off. And he's like, well, you guys are going to have to wait because I'm working on this right now. Well, we can't wait. We need something now. So they commissioned him to write this treatment. And it was the one that, you know, that involves Stu. And it was basically Sidney comes back to Woodsboro, and there's a cult of Ghostface killers, and they're all being mentored by Stu, who is still alive and in prison. And it's kind of like this April Fool's Day sort of scenario where nobody's actually, like the whole movie, everybody who was killed is actually not dead, and they're all Ghostface killers, and they rise up and surprise her at the end. And that's as much as like we know about it, because it wasn't a script, it was just sort of like an outline. And they passed on it. They're like, no, this is not going to work. And I agree, like, that doesn't sound like the best idea, but I mean, like, I don't think that, like, he obviously didn't have time to really, like, he's like, okay, this is not my best work, but here's something. And they're like, fuck that, we're just going to get this other guy that we already have contracted to do movies like Reindeer Games or whatever the fuck he was, Aaron Kruger was doing. So that's why he came in, had no idea what Screams 1 and 2 were, and just kind of like the Weinsteins were like, we want this set in Hollywood because like we like the idea that it's going to be about us, and you know, we want a movie that's self-referential to us, and that's kind of where they went overboard with the meta. And they've continued to go overboard with the meta ever since. Because I mean, like, I'll just say this, and we can probably move on from the opening scene, is that the idea of Cotton Weary playing himself in Stab 3 is so contradictory of Stab 1 and 2, because probably like there was someone else who played Cotton up until that point.
Well, is he credited?
And there is, because in the new movie in 5, when Tara is looking on her phone at the cast, it says that Craig Bierko played Cotton Weary. So there's already like, okay, so they just recast Cotton Weary with Cotton Weary.
Well, they said that he did a cameo in the movie, but did he do a cameo as himself, or did he do a cameo as someone else? And everybody's just kind of like, that's the real guy, you know? Like, is that kind of? I don't understand.
The Stab movie, I like, fuck. You know?
I know. I saw the video.
I did a video. I just I'm so done with Stab.
Watch it.
Yeah.
Been interesting. I mean, I'm ready to move on from the opening scene too. But just in terms of the thematics, like I really, I agree with you in terms of like what the movies tend to be based on as far as an idea or a concept, or you know, just kind of like even. They're not. I don't feel like any of them are really amorphous blobs, except for this one, because yes, they have the trilogy thing, but I feel like that's pretty weak and on shaky ground. And then they have the Hollywood satire, which is not handled deftly. I feel like it is just kind of there a lot of the time. Hearing you talk about like what a third movie could mean, though, like I mean, this is what I was getting as you were talking. It could have been a little bit more focused on on two things. If they wanted to keep a Hollywood thing, it could have been, and I feel like it kind of is, but it could have been shaped better. How Hollywood ruins something by the third movie. Yeah. And adversely, how a franchise really tends to kind of know what it is by its third movie. You know what the people are coming for better or worse. Like Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, no Michael Myers. People are pissed going to the movie theaters. Everyone's talking about how shitty it is for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. Now it has a cult following. But by then they knew, okay, So we shouldn't make any more Halloween anthologies or anything like that.
Yeah.
We need Michael Myers and Haddonfield, and if we can't have Jamie Lee Curtis, we need somebody who's connected to her. Some like that, all that stuff. Donald Pleasance, is he ready? Let's get him in there. And same thing, and then third Nightmare on Elm Street movie, third Child's Play movie, third Friday the 13th movie, even arguably I would say third Psycho movie. Like if movies are going to follow, it's just going to well, we must have these are the components we must have. And that could have even been something like a motive to, if we didn't want to go like this, let's rewrite how Billy and Stu were recruited by Roman and do like a lot of the backwards canon, retconning this and that or whatever. If we want to make it about somebody needing to just kind of have Sidney be a part of it because she is the final girl of the franchise. Yeah. We can't have our movie without Sidney. That in and of itself.
Yeah, like I said this once, I can't remember where, but I felt that what they should have done, like if they really wanted to do the Hollywood story, they should have done that as a sidequel. If that's an actual term. And like have that been like the Gale and Dewey movie. And not have Sidney in it. Like if Sidney was in it, just like maybe a cameo. But just like have it be about them, because that's the by and large what I feel is like the issue with this movie is just there's all these different movies within this movie and they're not committing to either one of them fully. So if they wanted to do the whole like Scooby-Doo, Gale, Dewey and Jennifer in there as well, like investigating, then like have that be the whole movie. That's fine. That's cool. Like that's fun. But the thing, like what I really like, what resonates with me in this movie is everything to do with Sidney. And I think that that's the missed opportunity here, because that could have been the conclusion to this trilogy of her story. And I feel that like it's almost like what I would have personally liked was more of an H2O storyline of not necessarily like we've already got her, like she's in the middle of this canyon, she's secluded. It's very much like H2O with Lori and her son, although she's like the headmistress of this school, but like still isolated. They just find some way to make that the story. And you could still have Roman or like whoever the character is who is connected to her through her past or through her mother be the killer. But just if they had just fully committed to that, I feel that like it would have been such a cohesive finish to the franchise, and just to have that in there. And I know that you mentioned Psycho 3. Yeah. And I don't know if that's why you're so giddy right now, but if it is.
No, actually I'm everything about Sidney makes me giddy in this movie, but one of the things, before we touch on where I think you're going, the first thing, just as far as her introduction, it always makes me giggle, is that when we see her walking outside her perimeter fence, and then she closes it and she says the little thing, and I looked it up. Nev Campbell is 5'7", and I looked at where the gate comes to. It's about like a full foot, but like at her sternum. So the gate is 4 foot 7 inches tall. Who the fuck is it gonna keep out? Yeah. Like you can jump, you can literally climb it and just sit on it and put your feet over. And I don't know. It always makes me laugh. Like it's an idea. I realize we're setting up visual storytelling to let just create like layers between her and the outside world. There could have been a better way. But
it's totally symbolic. Maybe there was like some sort of like sensory or like tripwire along the top of it.
Maybe.
But
it would have been funny if she would have like walked away and all of a sudden it just sprouts spikes or something.
But I mean, it's the same thing with H2O. Like we're supposed to believe that Michael couldn't find a way under or over that gate or anywhere along the perimeter of that school. Like he absolutely had to trick LL Cool J into opening the gate for him. Like it's maybe it was just like a late 90s or early 2000s thing where they're just like, oh, all you have to do is have a gate. It doesn't matter like the logistics of it. It's just put one there.
No, we live in a world where Michael Myers is an acrobat and people can jump fences, Sidney, so come on. But then it's followed by one of my favorite things about the setup for Sid, which is showing that she is while she's isolated, she is reaching out to people she does not know, women in crisis, and she's sitting there as an ear for them, and as creating like a space for them to just kind of like make room for their pain and to unpack it. And she's just, I don't know, there's something about that feels so champion-y to me. Like, I'm just kind of like, there she is. That's my strong Sid. Like, she's not just hiding and afraid. Yeah. She's processing stuff, and she's making her pain work for her because it helps her to empathize with other people who have been pursued by people who want to hurt them. And totally. I fucking love that about her.
It feels like the most natural trajectory for the character at that point. And I love the fact, because I mean, like, this is a lot of holdover from everything that happened at the end of Scream 2. We probably talked about that in the Scream 2 podcast, of just the psychological damage that was inflicted upon her by Mickey, because that's really why she is where she is at the beginning of Scream 3. And that's why I feel like it was such a great setup by Kevin Williamson. I mean, the ending, the very last shot of Scream 2 with the collective soul, like down 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 down. We're happy music, like that's you know.
Even though we're
like
just
all my
walking
friends
out
are
alone
dead.
on a lawn. Yeah, right.
I mean, I don't even know where Dewey is. Like, I think I saw him taken out on a stretcher, but like, everyone's dead. Everyone's dead.
Yep.
Except for Gale and Cotton, who, like, I don't even really like them that much. So it's like,
no, but Cotton's going to the news crew, and Gale's on the ambulance with Dewey.
Yeah. So it's like the misleading music, but I mean, like, it's still Kevin Williamson set them up really great for Scream 3. I guess there was like, and I don't know, like we this is another thing we talked about in Scream 2, that there was a scene that was deleted. And I went back and I was listening to the commentary, so I don't know if I misspoke, but I think that the deleted scene might have been earlier in the movie, like during the initial Gale and Dewey confrontation, before the quick, the infamous scene where you said that the nice streaks was the, he meant that like insulting and not as like flirtation, but it was that moment that they pan out and then you see the Ghostface watching them from the bell tower. So I don't know if that was there or it was at the very end of the movie where, I mean, it could have been either or like, who knows? But if it was the end of the movie, that would have been like a cliffhanger lead into 3. There's another Ghostface killer, which presumably would have been Roman, or even though like Kevin Williamson didn't write Roman canonically, so it just whoever the threat was in the third movie. But everything was still, regardless of that, set up very well. And they, like you said, like everything was put together nicely. It just like, it wasn't deft enough to kind of like make up just like a fully realized story.
Well, also the fact that I'm going to jump ahead and we'll go back to Sidney because there's plenty of opportunities to, but with Gale, she's the next character who's introduced, and the way she's introduced is we've just seen, this wonderful, kind of compassionate nature of Sidney in private. Gale on stage in full view of the public, telling them, break the rules, be willing to make the world hate you, with her terrible bangs. I mean, that's we don't have to make the pod about the bangs, but she it's funny because I'm watching that and I'm just kind of like, on one hand, I can feel them just kind of showing me, yep, it's just Gale being Gale. And on the other hand, I'm just kind of like, so when she went off with Dewey, like, she didn't learn nothing. Like, and I do have to say, like, they do explain it. Like, that's another thing I actually do appreciate about this movie, are not necessarily the way they're written, but the way they're acted. The scenes between Gale and Dewey, just kind of comparing notes and just kind of like sitting there across the table from each other. Once they do finally kind of see we're on the same side, let's, at least watch Dewey let Gale in a little bit, give her a little more information than he might have given her in the last scene, that kind of thing. Yeah. I'm totally here for that. And that said, what does Dewey do in this movie? Like, does he do anything?
What do you do?
He's misnamed. He doesn't do anything. He's not Dewey. He's Don't-y. Don't-y.
I mean, the thing, what he brings is like they have their banter. Like he is, like just his whole shtick of. Okay, here's the thing. I just get back to Gale first. Gale. We've talked about it. Gale is my favorite. Character across the franchise. I don't want to say that this is her weakest. Obviously not Courtney's weakest performance. Maybe and not even like her weakest outing, but this is like the outing for Gale that I feel is like the least characteristic of her. Because I do you're talking about how at the beginning she's saying all these things like don't be afraid to have the world hate you. But when I interpret from that is that Gale's gone soft in this movie. She is not the same Gale that she was in 1 and 2. And I think a lot of it has to do with, all of it has to do with the transformation that she underwent into and her life with Dewey. That got halted. Because when Gale is up there and she's saying, like, don't be afraid to have the world hate you, I don't believe her when she's saying it. And I feel that that's how Courtney is playing it, because it's just like, I don't believe the words that are coming out of your mouth right now. You don't feel like you're like, it doesn't feel like she's owning them. And throughout the whole movie, like, we see this softer side of Gale that we never see. And then, come Scream 4, it's like, Gale's back. Yeah. And like, even in Scream 5, it's just like, there's the bitch that we know and love. Yeah. Whereas like most of Scream 3, it's just like, she's doing her thing. She's doing her Gale thing, her investigative journalism. But it never feels like she doesn't have that edge to her. And I feel like a lot of what they're doing in the movie, because I know that even Aaron Kruger had written the characters and Wes Craven went back and he's just like, no, that's not what they would do. So I feel that like this might have a lot to do with him incorrectly establishing them in this movie, and then Wes Craven like having to do the best he could to kind of strike a balance. So I feel that a lot of what we see with Gale and Dewey, because a lot of Gale's presence in this movie is predicated on the relationship with Dewey, is just kind of like that banter and the like, will they or won't they sort of thing. And I feel that movie is resolved after the house explosion, because that's when they finally, like, they don't kiss, they almost do, and then Jennifer comes out and what the fuck happened to you? Because that was like, they finally resolved it, because everything up until that point, they had this very contemptuous back and forth thing, and it's just like, if you weren't so concerned with pretensions, you would know the positivity that there's so much alliteration in whatever fucking line he delivers there when they're in the trailer. The positivity and centeredness that I bring out in a woman, or some shit like that. And it's like, and she's like, you live here with her, and it's fun. Like I enjoy it. It's fun banter, but it's just like, this is not who they are. It's like, maybe it's who they are now, but I feel like there was they were redirected in later sequels, but it's almost like I'll watch this movie, and that's what I'm talking about if they had made a sidequel, but it's like, commit to it fully, because it's just like, it's so pushed to the wayside once Sidney shows up. But even once Sidney shows up, they can't even fully commit to Sidney. So it's like, here's all these threads that are just kind of like hanging in the balance, and we're just going to kind of check in on each one of them from time to time.
Yeah, I would have really appreciated that. Okay, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but right. Considering screen time for Sidney, even though I love the way she is handled as an individual, the fact that the lion's share of her screen time in this movie is either with her ghost mom or with fucking Detective Kincaid.
Well, can I just say,
instead of with Gale or Dewey?
I just want to say, and actually this is a shout out to Ryan Showers, who has his own podcast, Scream with Ryan C. Showers. He loves this movie. This is his favorite Scream movie. So I just to put that out there for him. He went ahead and did he gathered all these the data of screen times of all the characters throughout the movies. So I don't have that information in front of me, but I do know for a fact that Neve Campbell does occupy more screen time than any other character in Scream 3. So she's still in it more than everyone else. But if you go look at her screen time from Scream 1 to Scream 2 to Scream 3, and then even to Scream 4, and then Scream 5, it diminishes less and less with every movie. So it's like she definitely has less screen time in compared to Scream 2, and even in Scream 2 compared to Scream 1. But she is the star of the movie. Right. So I just wanted to get that out there, and just like Thank
you, Ryan.
Yeah, the work that he put into finding those times. So
totally,
that's pretty neat. So she is the star.
There was one exchange that really stood out to me, to get back to Sidney, when she's talking with her father, and I made not a bunch, but I made a few notes of this kind of stuff where I'm just kind of like, okay, that's writing 101. Just like when she's talking to her dad, and she's talking about like her mom, and about how she's like, kind of not even preoccupied, just like how her mother has basically like possessed her mind, and she just has nothing but questions, and she just wonders if she ever knew her at all. And then she asks him a really interesting question. She says, "You ever think about her?" And he just says, "Your mom?" And then he never answers the question. He just tells her he's worried about her because most of the people who she talks to, she doesn't know, and they don't know her real name and everything. And I'm just like, what the kind of fucking... Okay, number one, who do you think she was asking about? Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm like, maybe it's just splitting hairs, but I was
even
pissed
watching
off.
that scene this time, I felt like it seemed like there was more to it, because she gets up and she walks around to the other side of the counter. So I almost felt like, was there more to this conversation that they cut? Because I mean, like, you feel his like he's barely in the movie. He barely has like 2 lines. But just because like this is her father, it's a character that we know from the first movie, that it's just like his presence is still like, it has a resounding effect. So I always remember him in this movie, despite the fact that he's literally a blip on the radar. So I was even watching that and just like, there had to be more. Like they had to have filmed more to that. There was more of an exchange. Obviously like cut for time or the relevance or whatever. But it's funny that you bring that up, because my curiosity here is everything that we see in the movie of just like what the audience's perception of Maureen Prescott is. That are we led to believe that that's Sidney's perception of her, that Maureen to Sidney was this kind of harsh mommy dearest, like Joan Crawford type woman. Like, I was so pretty. Why won't you give me the respect that I'm entitled to?
Well, you always drew like a mommy dearest comparison. We've talked about this off pod before too, and
I think we even talked
like
about it in the old podcast. That we did
the
for
old
Screen
pod.
3.
Yeah. Well, because you said that, and then I said, like, I actually got much more of a sense of Mrs. Voorhees from her, but not like the Betsy Palmer Mrs. Voorhees, just the Freddy versus Jason Mrs. Voorhees, because it's a ghost mom, and just also the way, like, she talks to her and everything, especially when she gets, like, I just imagine her, like, talking to Sid going, like, Sidney, my special girl. Do you know what your gift is? No matter what they do to you, you cannot die. You can never die. You've just been sleeping, honey. But now the time has come to wake up. Mommy has something she wants you to do. I need you to go back to Woodsboro, Hollywood. The children have been very bad on the set of Stab 3. Rise up, Sidney! Your work isn't finished! Hear my voice and live again! Make them remember me! Make them remember what fear tastes like, Sidney! And that's what I...
Oh my god!
That's what I imagine her as.
Well,
So-
okay, because let's jumping ahead here to the end,
Yes.
to the end, like to Roman and to what Roman's ultimate plan is of how he's going to frame Sidney, which is such a bullshit plan that he made this fake recording of her voice. Which
Yeah.
I don't even want to talk about the voice box. I mean, like everyone knows it's bullshit. Whatever.
Stupid. Let's
we
just
don't
say
need, it's stupid.
It's awful.
But they're like, this is the thing that they're gonna find on his answering machine. But just like Sidney, I mean, like, regardless, there's so many holes in his plan. Sidney
Yes.
wasn't even in Hollywood at the time. Like, I know that she's all alone or whatever, but like, she has alibis. Like, her dad was there.
Her father.
She's obviously like she's getting calls. Like, she works at a call center. They would be able to trace the calls and all that shit. Like, it's just it's hard to place her at the scene of so many murders.
Her legal name would be on the payroll if she's actually making money doing this.
Yeah.
So unless she's just volunteering, and I don't know, did she make money from the Diane Sawyer interview? I don't know what she's living off of these days. But anyway.
Well,
go on, sorry.
my theory is that because like the only way that they would have been able to make Stab 3, which is based off of like it's not a real thing. Like, it's not. Stab 1 and 2 are based off of true events, which legally like you can make everyone has a right. It's public domain to write a book or make a movie about things that actually happen in real life. But once you start take a real person and put them into a fake scenario, that's where you run into legal issues, and that's going into Scream 4 when little Janie Randall says, but then she threatened to sue, so they started making up stories or whatever. That has nothing to do with Sidney, because that's where Sidney would sue them if she got into it, or like they used her character in stories that didn't exist. So what would have happened is that they went to her and they're just like, we need you to sign this release. We're making a third Stab movie. It's with you as a character, and we'll match whatever offer. You just tell us. So she would have had her lawyer. And at the time, I'm thinking that Sidney, being where she was in her life and being like, I want to get as far away from people as possible, this money would be good for me because I can go into hiding, that she would sign a release, name her price, and that they would pay her, and then that way the studio can make this movie with Emily Mortimer or whatever, Angelina, playing her, because it's not Tori Spelling anymore. That's how they were able to make this movie, and that's where she got her money from. Because even if she's volunteering, or even if she's getting paid, like, she would not be able to afford this property with her salary. And I know, like, her dad is obviously well-to-do, based on their house in the first movie, but is he, like, well-to-do enough that he would buy her this property out in the middle of nowhere, especially after he said that he doesn't like the fact that she's living out there? Like, it doesn't
now I want to ask Neve Campbell, like, what was her headcanon while she was playing it? Like, what did she think? Like, was she working or was she volunteering, and who was she being supported, or was she getting help and everything? I really want to know now. Okay, cool. God,
could you imagine that interview of like us and Neve Campbell? Like, I think she would have a great time. If anyone's out there and they could, somehow knows Neve Campbell and can make it happen, like, we'll give the Scream interview. We'll get to the bottom of everything.
Of the ages.
Yeah. But anyway, Roman and just like his plan to frame her. It just like, it wouldn't have had any legs at all. And the thing is that, like, they could have easily made this work, even if not with like Roman's plan, but just like the way in which they framed the movie for the audience, because they could have really sold us on this premise that could Sidney be the killer? Like, we even hear Tom Prince say, what if Sidney's the killer? She's probably off living like the Unabomber or somewhere, not completely far off from what is actually happening. But it's just like, and this is what you were talking about, like, because you mentioned this thing with Psycho 3 to me before. Maybe you could probably explain it better, so you don't want to take it away.
Wait, huh?
So in Psycho 3, Norman Bates, he's he's been in prison. He's back at the motel.
Yeah.
Like he's running the motel, but he's having these visions of his dead
okay,
mother.
Yes.
And
Yes,
she's
and hearing as well.
Yeah.
Like she's speaking to him. It's starting to happen again to him. And also, I mean, it hasn't even started. Like it started at the spoilers for the Psycho sequels, guys. But it started at the end of the second movie.
Yeah.
And by the beginning of the third movie, he is full throttle. Norman Bates, vacancy. You know, come on in.
Yeah.
And taxidermy and being a serial killer by day, and by night.
Yeah, that they could have played with this idea, even if like the audience knew the whole time. Like, there's no way it could be Sidney, but for the other characters to be like, how do we know you're not the killer? Because there's even like they do set it up in the movie, but they never follow through. Because like after Sidney is attacked on the soundstage, she's having that argument with Kincaid. Not really an argument, but she's just like, I was attacked. I know what I saw. It happened in Woodsboro. And he's like, that's not Woodsboro. And she's like, don't talk to me like I'm crazy. Like, I know what's going on here. So it's almost like that could have been the thread. That could have been like, if Roman was gaslighting her, which is what it should have been, of making it seem like, you know, she could have been the killer, rather than this very tenuous plan of just like, this is the recording that they're gonna find on Milton's answering machine, and that's how I'm gonna get away with murder, even though like Gale already saw you dead, and like it doesn't seem like you're gonna murder Sidney and Gale and Dewey. So it's just like when he because he's like, who's gonna be the one that saved the day and killed the killer with their own knife? It'll be me. And it's just like, but how are you going to explain, like, when the cops come and then Gale, who's, you know, a much more reputable, person who's going to be like, no, I saw him dead. Like, he faked his death. He's the killer. And they'll be like, oh, shit. You know, like, these are reasons why, like, Roman to me sucks. Like, I don't like him as the killer.
Well, I mean, and this is where, if we can get into the Roman of it all, just because, you know, why not?
Why not?
Because, you
Yeah.
know, TikTok. But, for the longest time, like, the logic of the movie just doesn't work for me. And so many other things that, you know, we can bring up, like, you know, and things that I've already brought up. But, by the time we get to the Sidney of it all, which works spiritual, like on a spiritual, emotional level for me, like I can ride the wave, because she's doing everything I want to see Sidney do from the moment she gets the phone call at the precinct and takes not just the gun, but takes two guns, because she needs one gun she can chuck into the pool like she's supposed to, so she can have the other gun to, you know, like to think, now you scream, asshole, or whatever the fuck she says. And
it's your turn to scream.
Yeah, there you go. She has a better line after that. Oh,
well, she says he's like, I still got to make my movie. Yeah, stab 3 right after like the third stab.
Yes, amazing. But okay,
it's basically the thing in Family Guy where Peter's like in the theater and he's like, they did the thing with the title.
Oh, because also this is a good way to answer your question about just like the presence of like Sidney's mother, Maureen, and like the question the movie is asking. That was so unclear to me for most of the movie, because I was like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to, like, she wondered if she was like the bad seed or something like that in the first movie. So we know that she has this weird thing about, she's still trying to piece it together, like about like her relationship to her mother and everything like that. So that is incredibly tenuous. That is an incredible, you know, that bond, even though it's still very, very much alive and, I don't know about strong, but it's inarguable. It exists. Yeah. She doesn't know what it's woven with. She doesn't understand what the bond is comprised of. So is it even a bond? Like, I don't know. So all those kinds of, like, you know, really psychological, you know, deep dives kind of questions for Sidney have been occurring to her, you know, like in overload, because we see her nightmares. We see her mother turning into Ghostface in the window and everything like that. And so she's troubled. So but I didn't understand the whole thing of like, okay, so is she afraid to like grow up and be like her mother, or is she afraid that she never knew her, or is she just afraid that she's a terrible person and she feels like she's judging her, and that's what's like. I wish we could have as we were making. I wish the questions weren't out of confusion and were more out of like intrigue. Like, oh, that's interesting. What is Sidney? Oh, she's worried about judging. You know, like I wish I could have ridden the wave a little bit more from the script. But what carries me, helps me it land for me on an emotional level is seeing the way Roman talks about Maureen in that final standoff where he takes Lance Henriksen out, Milton, and starts like talking about what his plan is going to be, and then cuts his throat in front of Sidney, and she doesn't derive any pleasure from it. She winces from it. She looks away, and she gets so
God, you
frustrated and
spineless bastard.
Exactly, because she knows, even though he's an asshole, and if everything that she's hearing about this, like, you know, and the way he treated her mother is true, she still doesn't want to see his throat cut in front of her and watch him pay the price that way. Yeah. She doesn't even know what she wants, and she's just witnessing more destruction, more just absolute recklessness and lack of regard for human life, regardless of whether they deserve to die or not. That is not, Sidney knows enough to know that is not her call. She's sick of it.
Sidney would not be a good host of the Cherry Picker. We'll just say that.
She would not like to kill people.
Yeah.
Even not really.
Nev Campbell might, but not Sidney.
Nev Campbell maybe, but Sidney no. Yeah. But I love the fact that like there's this exasperation with the line. She's just like when he's going on about like everything that should have been mine, and she's just like, oh, and you know the line better than I do. Like, what does she say?
Like, God, I've heard this all before. Like, you know why you kill people, Roman? Because you choose to.
Yes. See, that's my yes moment. That's where I'm sitting here, just kind of like,
just like, fuck you.
Yes, it is the ultimate in like sibling rivalry, which I absolutely adore. And as discussed previously on this podcast, I love when siblings go at each other, because even if they don't know each other, there is this weird inherent, because this thing she's existed for him this whole time, and the fact that he's totally exposing himself before her, like, this is how I see you and this is how your life has been, and she's just like, you don't know my fucking life, you piece of shit, listen, you know, and it goes right into something undeniable. Again, another bond that she doesn't know what it's comprised of, but it is right there, it exists, and she clicks into it with the fuck you, and it feels so visceral. And I love it.
It does, but I mean I feel like it's overshadowed by the disappointment of like a reveal for Sidney of just like, who are you? I've never met you before. I don't know, like, not even within the framework of the movie, they've never had any scenes together. It's very underwhelming. I even remember, like, I think the first time I saw the movie and he took off the mask, because I think at that point Roman had always worn glasses, so it was almost like a, wait, who is this?
Scott Foley?
Oh.
Is that Scott Foley?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like,
from television,
where'd he come from? Is this like that guy? But I will say for Roman, I feel that climax is. I don't want to say it's the best climax, because I obviously I prefer the climaxes of the first two movies, because I think that the killers in the first two movies, like all four of those, separately are my favorites. But I will say for Roman, I fear for Sidney's life in this climax. God. I actually feel like this is the only time in the franchise where I feel like, is Sidney gonna get out of this? Like, that's the question on my mind, because when I did first see it, I'm just like, they just killed her, and he does the typical thing, where he has to exposit everything, but he's not like physically, like, he's just like, I'm gonna get into it with you. Like, there's like, he's cornering her like a predator, like an apex predator. He's going to kill her and she has to fight back. Whereas I feel like everyone, like, there's never a moment where I feel like Mrs. Loomis attacking Sidney. It's just like, she's got this sort of thing. And even like Matthew Lillard, like Stu in the first movie, when he comes barreling out of the kitchen and they do that flip down the hall, I'm never concerned for, like, I know that Sidney is like, oh, she's easily going to take this doofus
She's got
out.
this.
Yeah. Whereas like with Roman, and maybe that has a lot to do with the fact that they've never met each other. So maybe I'm eating my own words here. Of just like, it's a lot more unpredictable. And even watching it in hindsight, of just like, he puts up a really good fight. And I think it was even at a point where they had to reshoot it because it was too easy for her. They had her getting the upper hand. There was no scene where, I don't even know if she had shot him or he had shot her or whatever. But I just remember they had to reshoot that whole ending because they're like, this is too easy for her. So they really made it difficult, where it's just like, like when we get to jumping ahead, like Scream 4, I guess at the hospital at the end, and even in Scream 5, I just feel like it's just like, there's no way she's gonna, like, she's so in control of the situation. It's just like, I have faith in Sidney. She's gonna be able to do this. Like, this was the one time in Scream 3 with Roman, where I'm just like, I'm not sure. I don't think that, like, Roman, like, psychologically, I don't think that he can manipulate her in the way that
no.
Like Billy and Mickey, I think that those were the two who were really able to work her that way. But just in terms of like what Roman does, like, it's all like in his physicality of that, because it's just like sheer like brute strength, and like they're like smashing each other with like candelabras and shit. Like,
it's amazing.
Yeah.
And vases and whatnot. Yeah. And slamming her, she gets a lot of head slams into like wood paneling and furniture and stuff, and I'm just like, damn. So by the time she is on the floor, and I think it's when Kincaid comes in with his gun in his bloody hand, his red right hand. Is it his right hand? I don't know. But he comes in and she's just laying there on the floor and just like looking at him. She's just kind of like limp, just kind of and whatever. And I'm not going, come on, Sid. I'm going, God damn, yeah, he wailed on you, boo. Like, just sit tight, get your strength up. Just wait for the bars, like a video game. Just wait for the bars of your strength to, boot up again, and then get up and do something. But also, just in terms of the whole thing with Roman, because another thing that I got actually from this screening was, I felt like the case that Roman was making in terms of like their mother and everything that Sid was hearing, for the first time I felt like Sid has this question mark over her head about her mother, and has had nothing but doubts and just darkness surrounding it. And then all of a sudden she has someone who is as connected, I guess biologically, to their mother as she is, but who is telling a story that she doesn't. She's not going to tell herself. She's not going to walk away from this experience with Roman's voice in her head and having to like exorcise it out of her memory or anything like that. Like you said, he can't get in here. She's already got enough up in here. Yeah. So the fact that like she's hearing him make this case and kind of paint Maureen as like this ultimate victim, and also this ultimate kind of like harsh, severe woman who shut him out and everything like that. None of that is going to affect the way Sidney remembers her. Yeah. And it's almost like I'm watching Sidney kind of get her mother back, as she's not denying it, but just kind of going, you don't have a clue what you're saying. And I don't know what transpired between the two of you, but I know what transpired between me and my mother, and I know that like she's not this, she's not that, and that's not the way I'm going to remember. That's not what I'm going to carry with me after this movie.
I'm sorry, but I just don't see that, because
I get it.
You have, before Roman is even finds her, and that's another fucking thing. Like, how did he get her number? It's there's no logic to it. People have said, well, they mentioned that like it was on a police scanner, but they basically, or on the set or something, but Dewey basically says no, that couldn't have happened. So it's already taken care of. It was just an instance of Aaron Kruger being like, how are we going to make this work? And the Weinstein's being like, we need this today. We needed this 2 hours ago. We're ready to shoot. And then they're like, okay, here you go. But it's, the thing is, like, Sidney has that nightmare of, like the thing that you did of just like, Sidney, mother wants to talk to you, like all that. And this is the same voice, even like, again, talking about the voice box, like how he got that. It's the same voice, it's the same cadence, it's the same tone and attitude and personality behind it that, we see him putting on this persona later on when he calls her, and then when he has the bloody sheet over him and all that stuff. So it's just if that was already Sidney's interpretation of her mother before Roman even came in and showed that to her, that just makes me think that that is who Maureen was in real life. Like, she was this really harsh, awful kind of, like, I mean, she was going off, like, having affairs with all these men in town. Like, she had issues. I'm not saying that she was a bad person. She had issues. And by the way, I fucking love when before Roman clicks off the video of them coming out of the motel, and you just see, like, Hank Loomis. He's got, like, he's just so disheveled. He's got, like, his jacket slung over his shoulder. He's got a cigarette in his mouth, and just, like, they had sex. Like, they're just like
it's like a silent movie level of, like, exposition shot. But no, but I mean, okay, or there's more to the line in a rebuttal to what you're saying. Maybe there's more to the line that Sidney says when she exposes, the bulletproof vest and says, I guess we think alike. Maybe they both have been haunted by this, this mommy dearest ghost figure.
I don't think that's. I don't feel that she got that closure to her mother in the movie. At least
we never
like,
hear.
What we should have had? They should have done the Scream 5 thing where she walked by a car and saw the mother's reflection and just.
Oh God!
Her smiling.
No, because Sidney's that tale has been told. I think Sidney, because also I think that's what makes her open up the gates and what makes her leave the door open with the sun tea and everything at the very end is this release. Like, she's no longer going to be imprisoned by anything, by her own mind, by other people. But
her
it's
mother.
Just going to be...
I just want to state for the record, I do not think that should have been in the movie. It was a joke. Some people take me seriously sometimes. I don't know why, but I mean, I feel that, like, we did get a lot of story about, because they did the whole backstory of what was it, Lisa Rinna Reynolds, fucking.
What?
The mom, her name.
Lisa Rinna. I was like, when was she in this movie? Rena Reynolds. Okay, there you go.
They could have had Lisa Rinna.
Lisa Rinna should have played her mother. Lisa Rinna should have played. Then we would have gotten the whole vibe. I would have totally agreed with everything you're saying if Lisa Rinna played Maureen Prescott, but she didn't. Yeah. So.
I mean, maybe a little too young for the role at that time, but it could have worked.
But yes. The thing that bothers me, I think, the most, or bothered me the most in this particular screening, was the presence of Mark Kincaid, because the whole time, and it doesn't help that, like, I've seen the fifth movie, and there's, I still speculate that there are a lot of guys named Mark. It's a very common name.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But just another one of those exchanges that I think I've mentioned to you before, and I'm going to mention it again because it bothers me. It's just like, hey, detective, what's your favorite scary movie? A question I am convinced Sidney would never ask anyone, especially movie 3.
Okay, I mean, I think that she might, because she's still, like, she's sussing him out. She's trying to figure out, like, who is this guy? Can I trust him? So it's one of those questions where just, like, I want to see his response to know if... I mean, I agree, it's not something that she would openly ask, but I think at that point in her life, it's so ingrained of like, everything that she's been dealing with, that she knows that the killer is obsessed with scary movies. She can see that Kincaid is a movie fan. He's got posters of horror movies in his office. That might be a thing that should be like, I'm gonna ask him what his favorite scary movie is, because maybe I can base off of his answer, try to get a read on who he is, if he is.
If that's the case, then he basically answered the worst answer you could in the worst fashion you could by leaning in and whispering under his breath, "My life." It's like, okay, you're a fucking sociopath. Get away from me. And I'm not trusting you anymore. I'm going back to wherever the fuck I live. Whatever
it was very,
north in
it was
California
very
shenanigans I was
close
in.
for comfort. I mean, like, the whole relationship between the two of them, there is no relationship. It just felt very forced. It was almost like we have to have a love interest. I even remember in the commentary they classified him as a quasi love interest. I believe that's the term. Like, not even full on, just quasi love interest for Sidney. And it's just almost like Sidney doesn't always have to be in a relationship. And maybe that's one thing I'll say about Scream 4 that I appreciate of her arc throughout that movie. It's just that she's an independent, strong woman on her own. She don't need no man. And, we already saw, like, it would make sense too. Like, Scream 1, she had Billy. Huge betrayal there. Scream 2, she didn't know she could trust Derek.
Yeah.
That ended up being the paying the ultimate price of her not trusting him, and being that thing that would lead her into the third movie and being like, I can't do a relationship. That's not what I'm here for right now. I'm just concerned about my own well-being, my psyche, getting through all of this. So it's almost like him being there at the end as the house guest. It makes me cringe. Because it's just like, why are you there? There's no I can see Gail and Dewey being there because it's like their family at that point. Whereas Kincaid, it's just like, you were a cop that I met for half a day. I showed up in the afternoon or whatever fucking time she arrived in LA. Went to the precinct, talked to him for a second. They went to the studio. Her next exchange with him wasn't until after the attack, and then he took her to the precinct. They had that conversation. She rifled through his things and found a file,
a creeper
on her.
file. Yes, horrible.
Horrid. The horror of it all.
That's a big deal. That is a deal breaker for me.
It's a red flag, and like I'm to expect that, even though he not that he really had much of an effect, like him showing up at the end, he didn't rescue anyone. He needed to be rescued. If anything, his presence hindered her more, because that's where Roman got the gun that he shot her with. So it felt so contrived that he would be there, and it was just one of those things where just like, well, we need to show that there's like hope for Sidney to have like a relationship in the future, but it's just like there was nothing about their connection felt like he was interested in her. We could obviously see that because his partner was like, oh, I know where you're going. You're gonna go buy her. By the way, I love that guy.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he had like all the. I mean, other than Parker Posey, like just all the best lines. Just like he was making a movie called Stab. He was stabbed. And then there's the other one where he's just like, it's like, what? Like when Gale shows up and he's like, yo, Terminal Entertainment, this is a crime scene. And
Yeah.
It's okay, she's here with me. She's like, well, in that case, I'm going to go dust for fingerprints with Jane Pauley. Was it Jane Pauley?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
he was great. We needed more of him in the movie. Apparently, he was at one time one of the killers, or I don't know. Like that's just to show the unpredictability of this script writing process of just like, what, like, was he going to be the brother? Like, is that what they were doing? But
he could be.
I mean, at least he would have met her at one point. But
the actor's name is Josh Pace, just to give him his due.
Thank you.
So I'm totally with you as far as like the ending. I don't even like the way Kincaid answers the question when she asks like, like what kind of movie they're gonna watch, and he's just gonna like, I don't know, we'll find out. And I'm just gonna no, you're gonna tell me what we're gonna watch. No surprises.
This is my house.
This is my house.
I control the
and
TV.
Yeah.
It's my remote.
I set your cast or something. I don't know. Like, I don't know what it is. But, yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
gross.
that's because, yeah, he was interested in her. She showed absolutely no interest. She was even just like,
No.
I'm not going to call you Mark. I'm not,
Yeah.
like, literally, I've known you for hours, if that. An hour.
And even though
you know?
I'm in total agreement with you about the whole, like, she don't need no man and everything like that. That said, I am incredibly, like, immeasurably moved by the simple addition when she finally does show up in L.A. of the Greek letters from part 2. Just wearing them, I'm just kind of like, it's just a wonderful little, like, those are the kinds of details I used to thrive on when I was a kid or just, you know, a minor. I remember I remember it's not a horror movie, but I remember after Batman Returns, when I was watching Batman Forever, thinking like, I want to see the damn black cat around Wayne Manor. You know, I want to see the cat that he took from Selena in the alley. I want to see it running around and just like in the background, or just sitting on his lap while he's watching TV and just scratching it and it's purring. I want that kind of continuity. I want to know that there's a through line and that they're connected and that somebody meant something to someone. You know, that's what I want. And the Greek letters definitely gave that for me.
Wait, was the cat? Sorry, now I need to know. Was the cat in Forever? It's been forever since I've seen.
No.
Different
wanted
Batman. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but still, you know, she's talking about like, do I need skin tight vinyl and a whip? We know where we are. Pat Hingle is still Commissioner Gordon, and Michael Gough is still Alfred. So come on.
I mean, maybe in whatever Michael Keaton's appearance was in this canceled Batgirl thing, that would have been where the cat would have made an appearance.
Maybe. Aw, now we'll never know. We really will never know.
No,
anyway, back to Scream 3.
Yeah.
We haven't even.
Well,
really
the
on...
letters, the necklace. That was actually Nev Campbell's idea.
Oh, good.
It wasn't Wes Craven. Like, she's just like, maybe she should be wearing the necklace.
Yes.
That just shows like her worth to the franchise.
Yes.
Just everything that she brought. Like, we won't delve into what's been going on with the new movie, Scream 6.
We'll talk about that in its own good time. But just her investment, like even just one of my favorite things to watch in this movie is this exchange between her and Emily Mortimer when Angelina just drops all the shit in the stall and she opens it. She's like, "Oh my God, Sidney Prescott!
Oh my stars!"
But my favorite thing, because also I love. Emily Mortimer overacts so much through so much. I mean, even like when she's worried about people, I feel like she's playing a role. I feel like she needs to be, a killer. But anyway, I love the way Nev listens to her. I love the way she's moved by just like, I just wanted to make you proud. She's like, oh, I mean, just again, that depth behind the eyes. Like there is a world of information going on behind those eyes and of just like emotional presence and everything. Yeah. God, yeah, exactly. Sure, I would have been and everything like that. But then,
even watching this, like it just like really dawned on me thinking about it because like Nev Campbell brings such a maturity to the role, and it just gets more present with every sequel. And by this movie, like I was just even thinking like she's 22 years old and she just has like the oldest soul. Like it just to know that like this is all the shit that she's going through, and she's a baby. She's barely an adult, and she's had to live like so much and suffer through so much at this point that it's astounding. So that's why I could see, like I could understand why she would have that empathy and understanding and just the ability to connect with people. And that's why it's almost it like you were saying, it's just like there are so many missed opportunities here of just this character who is like, clearly she's meant to help people, she's meant to communicate with people, that's her gift. And here she is shutting herself off from the rest of the world. It's like this conflict that it's resolved by the end, but it's not resolved in the way that it should be. It's not like thematically resolved through the story and through the characters, it's just kind of like, okay, well now she's good because this guy's dead. You know, like it's like Roman died, so all of my issues are solved. You know, like there's no more problem. It's just. I mean, I do think that by the end, it's there's always the idea that like this is never gonna stop. Like people are going to keep coming after me, or they potentially could. But at least now I know that I have the strength to face it head on. That's kind of my interpretation of like her by the end, and like her opening the gates. I don't really consider like what you were saying before, like anything to do with her mother. I don't think that her mother really had much of a role in the movie other than like, well, we needed a salacious backstory. So I think that it just in terms of Sidney's growth as a character, like we like from where they left off at Scream 2 and where we finish in Scream 3, it lands right. It's just the journey there was messy. Maybe that's the best way I can describe Scream 3.
And even the groundwork, the way it was laid in terms of, I can see a movie, like the exoskeleton of a movie about how Hollywood ruins things. It ruins franchises. It ruins people's lives. It ruins people's careers.
Friendships.
It ruins relationships, yeah. And it just, I can see them trying to tell that story. Somebody's trying to tell that story somewhere, and I think it's Wes Craven and all the actors. And Aaron Kruger doing what he can. But I think ultimately there could have been more. There could have been more.
I mean, the problem is that it's a studio film. It's such a studio film. Everything was controlled by
studios ruin things. It could have been about that.
They would never allow it. I just think that like the irony of almost like the whole idea of Milton and like his little friend circle or whatever, and like the parties back in the day, of just like 70s, when you look at like who made this movie, who produced it, of Harvey Weinstein, and it's almost like is it almost like one of those like how do you say, like when you're guilty of something and you're it like a Freudian slip almost in terms of just like coming out in your art, not even your art, but
or maybe it's just an inability to tell anyone's story but your own on some level. Like, I mean, like you said, who was motivated to make it about Hollywood and to go even, in that vein.
Yeah, or even like a way to like normalize it, to just be like, because Milton even says it's just like that's just how it is, or that's how it was. But it's almost like she didn't want to play the game. You either you're either in or you're out, or whatever he says. So it's almost like it is a way
it's
that
still
they're kind
playing
of like,
out too. Like people are still sleeping with each other and stabbing each other in the back on the set of Stab 3. It is still obviously going on. Hollywood,
Jennifer, remind me not to sleep with him again.
Exactly.
and she totally would have. She totally was going to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is a physical familiarity between her and I forgot his name.
Roman.
Scott Foley. Roman, thank you. I've never forgotten it before. I don't know what's happening to me. I think I'm fading.
Or Ronan, as Jenny McCarthy calls him in that one scene, and they didn't correct it.
Right. But there's a way. Like there is a physical familiarity between the two of them when they're just kind of like got their arms around each other's like waist or shoulders while they're just exploring the mansion. And
well, my favorite is. Because he's telling that story, he's faking being drunk or whatever, and he's just like, oh yeah, like just like drugs and booze and girls, and then you just see like Parker Posey, and she's just like, yeah, like her physical acting in this is perfection.
She's everything. She carries me through every scene she's in. I adore her.
Just her like her emphatic, like it's almost like when they're. Her and Gail are running down the hallway, and it's like she's a magnet. Like Gail like runs one way, and she's just like, oh, like her body is like heaves towards her.
I really love when I got to watch them running like holding hands too. Like anytime they're doing that, the twin Gail Weathers works for me. It has always worked for me. It will always work for me. It's one of the things that makes me champion this movie. But also just like, oh god, delivery of just lines like, just you. How am I ever gonna win an award playing you? And then Gail's just like, who dies third? And she goes, you do. I mean, it's so, oh my god, overtly dramatic. And then also just the way she just kind of like hops into Patrick Warburton's arms. And I love, there's an outtake where she did that and he holds her and Dewey and Gale clear the shot and he's just sitting there and he just kind of like keeps holding her and rocking her back and forth and he starts singing Old Man River to her and you can tell she's trying because she's got strong improv chops. She is trying to stay in the scene. She wants to laugh. So she starts to make it sound like she's crying. She says this like, and she just pushes away from him because she's going to lose it. And oh my God, it makes me so happy. I didn't even watch it this time, but it is burned in my brain in the outtakes for this movie. She's having fun.
Fuck, she should have. I think she should have lived.
I do too.
Yeah. There was no reason to kill her off other than I feel that her death is very metaphorical for the movie because up until that point, like the movie's so ridiculous. It's so like slapstick that after she dies, it's like the death of the comedy of the movie and everything reverts to serious Scream. So it's like you had to take out the most ridiculous character for the movie to be grounded in like the Scream reality again. Having said that, it still would have been nice if, just for her to like pop out at the end and been like, like, can someone help me? I've been stabbed.
Oh my God. You're making me think I'm going to ruin a movie for you called Suburbia. Let's just put it this way. She disappears, and we were worried about her for a long time. Then all of a sudden, she reappears, and we're not worried about her anymore. And if she could have reappeared in the same fashion in Scream 3, because the line that she comes back on in Suburbia is, cock-a-doodle-doo, good morning! And if I could have just seen Jennifer pop out of a limousine or something screaming that would have been amazing. Or it just pop around the corner.
She could have been the fucking, it could have been her with a cast on.
Too.
Yeah. Like,
oh my God! That would have been amazing. Yeah. Now I'm angry. But again, that would have changed the whole context of the ending because all of a sudden we would have been like, oh my God, wait, what? She's alive?
Yeah.
Well,
when? Okay.
How?
Obviously, because, we talked about it earlier and, I've done my YouTube thing. Like, I hate Stab. I hate the idea of the Stab franchise and how it's this fucking big thing that people are obsessed with. Like, it's not. It's a fucking, it's based on, it's like it should have been like a Lifetime TV movie. There's no way that this would be, characters like Herbie or Mindy would be like, this is the movie that like made me love horror movies. It's like, no, like, have you seen that shit? It's terrible. But what would be perfect? I mean, if they have to do something with Stab, if they have to bring back Stab, I want them to, make, like they did in Scream 5 with Randy and Scream 1, do a scene, it could be from... okay, this is what I would like to see because, like, just for cost effectiveness, because you wouldn't want to have to bring in David Schwimmer as Dewey, you can have the scene in Stab 1, like Scream 1, where she's yelling at Kenny and telling him to move his fat tub of lard ass. I would love to see Jennifer, like Parker Posey playing Jennifer Jolie in a clip of that, of just, yelling at her cameraman. Or they could do something in Stab 2 where she has the Gale streaks.
Yes.
And maybe some, and then with Joel or Mrs. Loomis, they could cast someone as Mrs. Loomis and have them
Debbie Salt.
bickering against dream casting. Who would play Debbie Salt in the Stab movies?
I mean, Laurie Metcalf has a daughter who played her as young Jackie in Roseanne and also plays her as because Laurie Metcalf played Jim Parsons' mom on Big Bang Theory, and there's young Sheldon. Her daughter plays her as young Sheldon's mom in Young Sheldon. So bring in her daughter, make it ultra meta. Her daughter always plays her younger in other stuff. So yeah, bring back her daughter.
I mean, it wouldn't make it like timeline wise, because this is a movie that came out in like the late '90s. But just I just want to see Parker Posey. That's the only thing that matters. It's like if you're gonna if you have to make a fucking stab scene and do something like that's what they should have had. They should have had Parker Posey. I mean, no offense to jumping into Scream 5 here, but it's just like if they really wanted to make people happy, like what they did is like it's great and all, whatever, but if they had found a way to bring in Parker Posey, they could have de-aged her. Not that I think that she would even need it, but like they could have just, they did it with Skeet, they could have just had her come in and do a fucking scene. Everyone would have fucking loved it. It would have been a highlight, Easter egg in a movie. They still could. If they absolutely, I don't need to see anything to do with Stab, but if they absolutely have to do something with Stab, please have it involve Parker Posey. That's all I'm going to say.
I mean, there's a third installment in the next branch of arguably like a trilogy of eras of like the reboots and the requels, and who knows what this next one is going to be about. Could still happen, who knows. But I'm gonna keep my opinion to myself until we do the 5 Cream pod. But this one, I have to say, I still have so much more I could say. I won't, because I don't want us to run for 3 hours. But I will say this movie, I don't think it's great, but I do. And I will wait a while. It'll probably be like a few years before I revisit it, or I'll just hopefully I'll just get an inkling and be like, oh, I haven't seen that in a while. I'm gonna put that on. I want to watch it in that context the next time I see it, and I'm looking forward to that. But and I will. But it is so dense. This is the thing. This is there's a worth to this movie. There's a value to it because I can discuss it for hours. There are things we haven't even addressed that I would if I had the time. But what about
if there was one before we get to the cherry picker, is there maybe one more thing that we could briefly touch upon that we haven't talked about?
Okay. One thing that did occur to me while I was watching, particularly Sidney, like wandering around the sets after her exchange with Angelina.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk we haven't even talked about Angelina as the killer. That'll be the segue final conversation.
Okay. But yeah, so in terms of that, like it feeds the movie for me. It helps me through it, because if she's just some kind of rando who doesn't quite belong in this, she just doesn't quite belong in this movie unless she's affecting a character like, I'm a decent person and of course this movie means something to me, but not at the expenses of people's lives. I mean, she's giving almost that level of her performance. And they're up in the house and all that. I want it to be because she's a little crazy, and because she's not, because Angelina, not Emily Mortimer, because I love her, but Angelina is not that great of an actress, and and I love that. I love that angle for it, and it also makes it make a little bit more sense how Ghostface can be in so many places. With the set, with the fucking house, like why? I mean, it doesn't make sense why there'd be a Ghostface down by the van. Unless Angelina tumbled before everybody else and just pulled a Ghostface mask out of her bag.
Yeah, even watching it this last time, all I could think was like, because people, they justify it by saying it's a set, like Roman could easily, run to all these places, and because he's the director, he would know. And like logistically, yeah, maybe he could. I mean, but still, like time-wise, it's pushing it really close. And I just think that like everything that we see, and especially like in the scene with Jennifer's house, and even in the mansion towards the end, it's just, there's so many instances where just like it just makes more sense if it's 2 of them. And it would have, I mean, I don't think that like just based on like what I've seen of Angelina's reveal on paper of, you know, when she was the killer, she was basically the original Judy Hicks. She was a high school student who Sidney had no idea existed. So that was kind of a holdover that they implemented in Scream 4. But she was obsessed with her, and there was this whole kind of like incest angle where, you know, Roman was fucking her, and it was right. Like, and there's a line where he actually says like, you know, and now, you know, when I sleep with her, it's almost like I'm sleeping with you, or something to that effect. And I know that's too much, but they yeah, like because she was the one who had like the big, like the killer comes back for one last scare, and, you know, would have like come running in all burnt to a crisp, because I think like her head had a TV slammed on it or something. So.
Like Bride of Chucky, yeah. All fried, just fried and frayed.
But
that would be great.
There's definitely like it's with Scream 3. I mean, the killer could have been anyone. Like that, they didn't do a very good job of writing or, you know, making it. Because, you know, with all the other movies, there's tells. You know, you can if you're paying attention, you can figure out who the killer is. And in this one, I feel that it's more so based on information. It's like, who do we hear more facts about? Because it's just like Roman says, like, I'm about to turn 30. So it's just like, well, that was an interesting point that like didn't need to be brought up. So it's just like maybe he's a character of interest. And then Angelina, them being like, you win this talent search out of like 50,000 girls, or, you know, just things like that like definitely clue, like they set these characters out from the rest of them that they could have been the killers. And I know a lot of people still headcanon that Angelina is one of the killers, and that she's still alive, I guess, because her, you know, according to that DVD box set, in the booklet it says R.I.P. Scream cast, and they have like a picture of everyone who died, and she's not in there, which I think was just a mistake. But people have interpreted that to mean that Angelina did not die because her death was faked, and she actually got away.
She dragged herself away in that bird's eye view out of the shot.
She just like, she had her arms and she was like sliding herself.
Yeah, she had her legs bent. She was pulling herself with her shoes like underneath like a piano bench or something. Yeah. Or my favorite theory, Stu was pulling her out of the frame.
With all these living ghost face killers, you know, they may as well just make another fucking movie now and then reveal it to be Stu and Angelina. Like, that's, I feel like there's only a small percentage of people who would like that.
Weirder things have happened. I mean, we may get to a point where they decide to do, you know, like their own universe as if only the first Scream movie existed or something, and then they can, you know, start making sequels again. I wonder if Nev would ever be attached to anything like that, though, if she would come back for her Scream 40, you know, or something like that.
Because it has to do with time travel.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
God, or if they just start making stab movies, which I know you would love.
Yeah.
You're so enthusiastic about it.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. I mean, there's so much more to talk about, but
there is.
We still got the cherry picker to deal with, so let's get to the cherry picker. We gotta figure out a cherry on top here, and I don't think that this is going to be difficult at all. Do we even have to say it? I think we have. Well, I mean, obviously we have to, but we'll say it at the same time. We'll say it at the same time. Okay.
Jennifer. We can't. We got a slight delay, folks, so we don't know when we're saying things.
No, I was just waiting for you. But
we knew we were. Yeah.
This is. I mean, I would say Sidney, but I mean, like, it's Jennifer's movie, you know, like this. It's Scream 3 is not Scream 3 without Jennifer.
Sidney grounds me, but Jennifer carries me.
Jennifer lifts you.
Yeah, and Sidney's in other movies. Like, this is the only Jennifer movie she's in, so let's give it to her.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so
Yeah.
last week for the cherry picker, we asked you who deserves to die the most in single white female. If you haven't watched the podcast or listened to the podcast, go back and see that one, because we had a lot of fun. But
that was
this is
good.
like one of the most fun episodes to do. But of course, like I'm sure like a lot of people haven't seen that movie. You're missing out. But
Yeah, watch it.
I nominated the character of Mitchell Meyerson, who was Allison's pervy, condescending
Lecherous,
client. Yeah,
horrible. Yeah.
terrible person. You nominated Hedra Carlson, the horrible roommate. The
movie's heavy. The
Yeah.
titular character.
yeah. Yeah, you didn't want to. I know you didn't, but you know, despite all that, you nominated her, and the people have voted, and across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the vote was 126 for Mitchell versus 168 for Hedra.
Really?
Really? This, and you know what? You wanted to make her the cherry on top.
I did.
Is that-
I wanted her to be
like-
both. I wanted her to be both.
Which is, yeah, that's unofficially, that's the rule, is that they can't be both. But
I know.
yeah,
I know.
that's, I mean, wow. I would have liked her to
That
be
is-
both as well, but yeah, because well, she
But-
killed the dog. She killed the dog.
Yes. No, and I understand, but at the same time, I mean, and also I'm like dedicated to Jennifer Jason Leigh as an actress. Stephen Tobolowsky is great, but you know, that I don't savor that character the way I savor Jennifer Jason Leigh playing Hetty. But okay, wow.
All right,
I was shocked.
just a few
Right.
comments here, because you know, obviously
Okay.
not a lot of people have seen it
Yeah.
to know or to vote. But,
Watch it, stream it, folks. Find it.
yeah. Where is it streaming?
Oh, I wasn't gonna say.
You're gonna
last
have to
time, but
reveal your hand.
Okay, I don't know if it still is, but I streamed it off of Paramount Plus. So if you are subscribed to Paramount Plus and you have access, and I guess maybe in the States, I don't know if it's going to be abroad or anything like that, but in the States it was on. It may still be. Check it out. Find it. It's worth a $4, $2, $3, whatever rental, like wherever you can find it. Redbox it. Do whatever you can.
Yeah, 90s
Go,
guilty
rent it from the
pleasure.
library. Rent it from the library for free.
I just have the
Anyway.
Blu-ray, obviously, but
Obviously.
that's my compulsive need to own everything.
Uh-huh.
But it's worth owning. I like it. Anyway,
I would
so,
own it. Now I would own it.
yeah,
Now, yeah.
that's awesome. So okay, Silent Saturn says Hetty just needed a hug, really. And as a cat person, I don't see killing dogs as much of a deal breaker, to be honest.
Oh my god. Whoa.
I wonder if she actually threw him out of the window or just opened it and was like, if it happens, it happens.
I think she punted him.
I don't want to think about that. Everything about Mitchell is just super disgusting and vile. The film even had me believe for a second he'd be the hero to save the day in the end. Unforgivable.
Ugh.
So it sounds like Silent Saturn was on my side, but not on the
Right,
side
yeah.
of dogs, apparently.
Not on the side of dogs. Wow.
Sirena Shock. Hetty killed the innocent puppy. No mercy to people who kill innocent animals.
Yeah.
So that's,
No mercy to either of them.
that's
People
the-
who assault women too, in the workplace, out of the workplace, whatever. No mercy to either of them.
No
in
mercy
my
to
book,
any
but-
fucking character in that movie other than the dog. Let's be realistic.
That's true. They all
Everyone
did
was a
shitty
shit
things.
stain.
Everyone
in that
was
movie.
a shitty person.
We had so much trouble picking the
Narrowing
cherry
it
on top that
down.
we picked the animal for the fucking
yes,
cherry
we
on
picked
top.
the puppy. We picked the puppy. Go on.
Anyway, well, you go on because you've clearly won this round, good sir.
Oh, okay.
So you get the first dibs for Scream 3's
Oh.
cherry picker nomination.
Okay, well, this is probably just really predictable and uninteresting, but... And it's weird to say it in the face of, like, what I just talked about in terms of Sidney's response to him being killed, because he is killed in the movie. But who deserves to die the most? He's everything that's wrong. Like, the movie doesn't happen if he... And I'm big about that, about, like, you know, how much of the movie happens in the bad way because of this person. And I think it's Milton. What is his full name? I don't even remember. But Lance Henriksen's character. John Milton, thank you. I knew you'd know. But, for every reason that I said, and for all of the reasons that are so incredibly... should be on the face of it obvious. The deplorable person commits deplorable acts unapologetically, and I honestly, there's a part of me, even though I totally am, you know, Team Sidney in terms of like her reaction to it, and I, you know, the part of me that loves comic book characters and loves people that, you know, spare people for reasons, and I believe in those reasons. There's also another part of me that wishes that Roman would have killed him slower. So there you go.
I mean, if it's any consolation, and maybe not, because this is was a terrible thing that happened to Lance Henriksen on the set, but Scott Foley got so into character during the, like, after he slit his throat, that he actually slit Lance Henriksen's throat in real life, and no, he didn't. Oh my God! No, he
don't do that. I'm too.
Yeah, Lance Henriksen. Yeah. Okay, no. There was a mat. There was supposed to be a mat that was put there because he throws his body, but he was so into the moment that he threw him, and he was like had his hands tied behind his back and everything. Yes. So he was thrown on the floor, and. You know, I think he played it, but afterwards he was like, oh, I got to go to the hospital because he was thrown with force, couldn't, like, break his fall or anything. So there was a lot of, like, even Nev Campbell stabbed Scott Foley with an actual, like, the ice pick. Like, it actually went into him.
The ice pick. Oh, my God.
Like, there was a lot of shit. Like, it is hazardous to work on a Scream movie. Because even in the first one, Skeet Ulrich got stabbed with the umbrella because there was a padding, but it hit him, and he had like heart surgery when he was a kid, so it actually like hit the scar, and it is. No. You know, think twice before you accept a role in a Scream or Stab movie.
Yeah, no. If I don't die in the movie, I'll take the role. If there's nothing violent happening to me, and I just get to like remark on something, I get some like witty quip, I'll do it. Yeah. But other than that, no. Yeah. But, no violence for me.
I'm gonna throw you a curveball here.
Ooh, I want to hear.
I mean, maybe it'll be fun. Maybe it'll just be like them. But I'm gonna nominate the character who's just credited as Student, who we see at the beginning of the film. He's the guy at the Gale's little conference there, who gets up and he's all like, well, tell me, Mrs. Weathers, was it worth it? Or, whatever the fuck he says.
Right.
Like, just really, like, snotty attitude.
She's, right after she says her opening lines about, like, you have to be ready to make the world hate you.
Or her closing lines is like, well, tell me, Miss Weathers, was it worth it? Or, whatever he says.
Yes.
Actually, that actor is David Arquette's brother. One of the Arquettes. But that character to me is just vile and disgusting, and he shits on Gale when Gale is really trying to be. I mean, I know that in that moment she's not really, she doesn't have a lot of conviction in the words that she's saying, but I know where Gale's heart is, and that guy was just being a piece of shit in the moment. Like, she's trying to help your career, buddy. Like, who the fuck are you to get up there and try to embarrass her? Like, the fact that she didn't make an example out of him there just shows that she's, maybe I don't. Just it was just a softer version of Gale. That if he had done that to if he had been fucking Rebecca, like Sidney's publicist in Scream 4, and had said anything condescending, like, she would have shredded him to pieces. So I think it's the fact that he kind of avoided any sort of consequence for his
I see
his rudeness. That's why I'm picking Student. So it's John Milton versus the Student.
couldn't be more dissimilar. But I just
Well, who else was it going to be? Was I going to pick Ghost Maureen, which I think, according to the rule book, does still apply. I think, because she's still a.
She's an actual person. She existed in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. She's it's a dream or a like a flashback or whatever. It still counts. But we get
flashbacks. We get.
I just have too much fun with her. It's like it's a fun character.
Yeah, she's
great. Whereas
great.
Student is just a piece of shit. Like he should have died. And the stab cast is just too like. I mean, like who is it? Like, fucking Matt Keeslar or whatever. Like. It would have been him otherwise, because he's just like, I think he's the weakest link, either him or Jenny McCarthy. I don't know, but
I wish I could have given him more to do. I wish I could have given a lot of them more to do. Actually, that's the thing. I mean, Jenny McCarthy gets like one scene that stands out. Matt Keeslar. I mean, that was another thing. Readjusting. It's like, hello, vertigo. But
why am I showering anyway? My boyfriend just died.
And it was just like, just watch her boyfriend get chopped into fish sticks. But with that LA vocal fry again. But see, we've come full circle. Yeah, no, Matt Keeslar, he was in everything back in the day, like Waiting for Guffman, Urbania, Last Days of Disco, Splendor. Like, I loved him in a lot of movies in the late 90s. And yeah, this was one performance where I was just kind of like, you wasted, little Waiting for Guffman boots there. Anyway,
so vote your heart, vote your conscience.
Vote your heart, vote your conscience.
You can vote on Patreon, Instagram, or YouTube. If you are listening to the podcast, you can watch us on YouTube. The channel is The Cherry Picker. If you are watching us on YouTube, you can also listen to these on podcast platforms. The RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. If you want to follow us on Patreon, well, you can support us on Patreon if you would like to. That definitely helps make the podcast better and all that fun stuff. And you also get to get these episodes in audio and video early, like 4 or 5 days earlier, the Thursday or Friday. Whenever it's ready, which I will then segue into thanking Andre Felix, who is our editor, who does all that and gets it out to you on time. So thank you to him. And also, if you are supporting us on Patreon, coming out tomorrow, because I'm just thinking of like the release date. Tomorrow is our bonus episode, which is on Patreon for the Freddy Krueger tier and above, which is our discussion, analysis, and ranking of Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 1, all of the episodes in that, which we painstakingly went through.
It got ugly.
4 hours. It was tense. People say that, wonder if we actually like each other. I think after it was over, we're just like, okay, I can't see you.
And
we had just recorded Nope, or some episode the day before. So it's just like I've spent way too much time arguing with you over the last 24 hours. But anyway, it's still lots of fun. It's gonna be out tomorrow, only on Patreon. So it's my Patreon, which is Zach Cherry. You can also follow us on Instagram at the Cherry Picker Pod. You have an Instagram. Where can they follow you at?
I do. It's at Edward is Truth, one word, spelled traditional, but without spaces. Does that make sense? And also I have a YouTube channel called Edward is Truth, one word, spelled traditionally without spaces. And you watch me watch movies and evaluate on my own, on my couch.
Maybe you should do Scream 3, jump right into it again. Let them see the experience that you just explained to us.
No. Nobody wants to see that, because I'm going to be exasperated. I'm going to be sitting there going, oh my God, I can't believe I'm watching it again. Nobody wants that. Yeah. I mean, and if you do, yeah.
And you can follow me on Instagram at RetroBitchFace. That is all one word, RetroBitchFace.
Yeah.
And there's not really a story behind that. titled, but I'm also on Twitter at ZachCherry8. And there's my main YouTube channel. You can go subscribe to me there. Zach Cherry, simply Zach Cherry. I just hit over 100,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Like literally, like today as we're filming it. So.
And I have over 100. Yay!
Yeah, that's a big deal. It's hard.
I know, it's cool
to get like your
and
like first
counting.
100. And that's another. If you're like subscribed to this channel as well, the Cherry Picker.
Totally.
Yeah, just subscribe to all of us.
Get all of us.
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds. Yeah, let's stop.
But what have we got going on next week? You probably don't know because you didn't.
I haven't
ask
the
me.
foggiest notion. If I don't check with you before we record, I don't
Yeah.
remember. So you tell me, Zach. What have we got going on next week?
Well. Does that sound familiar? I don't know.
It sounds like the tiny flea parade. I don't know.
I know that was my attempt to do the Halloween theme.
Yes.
Halloween 2018.
Hey,
We
your
are
favorite.
going to. I know we probably should have started with the original, but since Halloween Ends is coming out this October, we want to be prepared for that. So we just want to take care of this Blumhouse trilogy. So we're going to be doing Halloween 2018. That's going to be out for the end of August here. By the end of September, we're going to do Halloween Kills. And then at the end of October, it's going to be Halloween Ends. So we're going to rip it off like a slow Band-Aid.
I can't wait to do these with you.
Yeah. I know you
It's
can.
gonna be so much fun.
So,
Yay.
so you really lucky. You get a Scream episode and you get a Halloween episode. People are going nuts right now, and Buffy if you want to get in on that too. So
Yeah,
there is a lot of exciting things happening with the Cherry Picker coming up here. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we'll be right back.